So November didn't go how I expected, but it was my best reading month of the year. Howdy, hey y'all, it's Sandra with One for the Books. I'm here today to bring you my November wrap-up, which did not go exactly how I planned. My initial goal for the month was that I was going to read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and I got about 75% of the way through this book before I had PRK eye surgery. For those of you who don't know, PRK is similar to LASIK, but the healing process takes a lot longer. And so basically, after the surgery, I have not been able to read physical books. So I've just been listening to audiobooks, and unfortunately the audiobook for Braiding Sweetgrass through the Libby app through my local library has a really long wait time. So I'm still stuck at 75% of Braiding Sweetgrass. And the other book that I really wanted to get to in November was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This one also has a crazy long wait time for some reason on the audiobook. I did not even start this one. So November didn't go how I expected, but it was my best reading month of the year because I was off work for a week and could do literally nothing for entertainment except listen to audiobooks because I had had my eye surgery. And so I just laid around and listened to audiobooks for a week straight. So I'm here to tell you that I have finished The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. I started this series back in July and was doing kind of a book club read along with my mom, my husband, and my brother, and that was super fun. But after we finished book 6 together, we decided that we didn't want to continue doing like in-depth book club reviews for the last 3 books. And so I basically just got to binge those without having to worry about what timeline they were on, and that was great for me in my post-op haze. I read book 5 of The Expanse. I finished that right at the beginning of the month. That was Nemesis Games. And up to that point in the series, Nemesis Games was my favorite book. Just having read 1 through 5, I was like, oh, Nemesis Games is the best one so far. Nemesis Games is the first book in the series where all of the POV characters are the crew of the Rocinante. So usually you just get like one point of view. Like usually it's like Holden. You get Holden's point of view in every book, but you don't get Naomi or Alex or Amos. And so Nemesis Games is the first one where you have 4 point of view characters and they're all those people. And because those characters are the ones that you're like really wanting to follow the whole time, for me, that was part of what made the book so good. The book starts out where they're basically like, they're coming back from the aftermath of book 4 where their ship needs a lot of repairs. So they basically are on shore leave for the extent of this book. And so Amos goes back home to Earth to check in on a friend of his from his childhood that passed away. Alex goes home to Mars to try and make amends with his ex-wife and also to go see Bobby, their friend from previous books. Naomi gets a mysterious message from the OPA that says that someone from her past life is in trouble and she needs to come help them. So she goes to Ceres to go figure out what's going on there. And then in the meantime, Holden stays on Tycho Station with Fred Johnson, and he hears that there are ships disappearing when they go through the ring gate. It's very mysterious. No one knows where these ships goes or what happens to them, and no one is keeping track of it except for this reporter, Monica, who brings it to his attention. So he starts investigating, why are these ships disappearing? So that's the overall premise for Nemesis Games. The 6th book in The Expanse is called Babylon's Ashes, and it is basically a really long sequel to everything that gets set up in book 5, Nemesis Games. More so than any of the other books in this series, those two I feel like are a pairing that go together hand in hand. Babylon's Ashes continues to focus a lot on Naomi's backstory and people that she was close to as a young person when she was a member of the OPA. I don't want to say too much more about that, but it was very good. I didn't like it quite as much as Nemesis Games, but there was no book in The Expanse that got less than like maybe 4.25 stars from me. So they were all really good. Book number 7 is Persepolis Rising. this is like a 30-year time jump from where book 6 ended. And that's really the only book that does that. So the characters that we've been following this whole time are still there. They're still our main characters, but they're a lot older now. When these books started, they were all pretty young. They're getting up there in age. I don't know if it actually says how old they are, but I kind of picture them as being like in their 60s when Persepolis Rising events happen. Persepolis Rising plot is basically that the Sol system, Earth, Mars, the Belt are really no longer the focus of humanity. Even though that's where we came from, there are 1,300 other systems that have been colonized or attempted to be colonized. Not all of them are self-sustaining yet, but there's a lot of trade going on between different systems. Some of them are already self-sustaining. Some of them already have pretty decent-sized cities. There's like billions and billions of people. And one of these systems tries to take control of the ring space, and they try to take control of it to start a empire, basically, of all humanity and be like a giant authoritarian dictatorship. That's obviously bad. And of course, the crew of the Rocinante are our main characters here. There are a few other characters added in. There's always a few different POVs in all the books except for Nemesis Games. Our main characters are pretty much the resistance that are trying to prevent this empire from taking hold. At the end of Persepolis Rising, one of our main characters that we followed for this book gets captured by the Rising Empire. So that leads in really well to Tiamat's Wrath, which is book number 8, the second to last book of The Expanse. In book number 8, it's still the story of the resistance versus the Empire and freeing someone who has been in prison and all the things that go along with that. I can't really say too much about it, honestly, because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I will say Tiamat's Wrath is only the second book this year that has made me tear up. I did get a little bit emotional at one of the parts of this book, and it was so good. The last book of the Expanse series is Leviathan Falls, and Leviathan Falls really just ties a big bow on all of the things that we had going on. It gets really huge in scale. It gets really epic. Tiamat's Wrath and Leviathan Falls were just like stunning, excellent masterpieces, honestly. There was one thing I was unhappy with at the end of Leviathan Falls, but I honestly can't complain. Like, I got to be with these characters and in this world for 9 super solid, amazing, epic books, and I didn't want it to end. I was honestly really sad after it ended just because I wanted to stay in that world with those people that I felt like were family to me at that point. So, cannot recommend The Expanse highly enough. It was just stunning. Oh, also, I did want to mention the audiobook narrator for all of the Expanse books was named Jefferson Mays. I know absolutely nothing about Jefferson Mays other than I did want to mention that he did an excellent job narrating all of the Expanse books, and you could tell that he did this narration like after the Expanse show came out, because his like voices that he did for Alex and Amos in particular were pretty spot on. Like, I could picture the actors like saying it the way that he like did his intonations and stuff while he was reading it. So I really appreciated that. I thought he did a great job with that. I didn't agree with all of his pronunciations of some of the words, but that's just because I'm biased towards the way I had already heard it. But yeah, Jefferson Mays was an excellent narrator for all of the Expanse books. So the 2 other books that I read in November were... Well, the first one was The Hurting Kind, which I have a copy of, but for some reason I don't know where it is right now. The Hurting Kind by Ada Limon. Ada Limon is our National Poet Laureate this year, and she lives here in my city, Lexington, Kentucky. And she actually had a speaking event at a campus here in town earlier this month that I got to go to. It was free. And so I made sure to read at least one of her books of poetry before I went to the event. So I read The Hurting Kind. It was so good. She is so funny and sweet and authentic in person. And I just can't, I like teared up multiple times, like at her event where she was doing the readings and like telling these stories. And I just think there's no one more deserving to be our National Poet Laureate right now. I'm so glad that it's her. I also bought another one of her books at the event called Bright Dead Things, which I'll be reading next year. So I'm excited for that. Her poetry is just so thoughtful and deep, but really accessible at the same time. I had so many things that I underlined in that book, and I got it signed by her while I was there. So that was really cool. And then the last book that I read in November was The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee, which is one of the ones I had picked for nonfiction November because I was planning to read Braiding Sweetgrass and The Sum of Us were planned to be my nonfiction November reads. And then Braiding Sweetgrass and Black Sun were supposed to be my Native American Heritage Month reads. So I kind of failed on this one because I didn't finish Braiding Sweetgrass, and there was no audiobook available for Black Sun in the month of November. But I did get at least one nonfiction November book completed, The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. This was one that I picked up during my little free library bicycle tour, which you can view. It was a super fun, beautiful autumn day, and I got to ride around. And this was one of the two books that I picked up on that day, and I said I would read this, both of those books by the end of the year. So The Sum of Us is a really well thought out and well researched book. Heather McGhee traveled all around the country to kind of look at different communities which have really struggled with racism, and some communities that are very diverse and prospering, and trying to determine like what the differences between these places were. It goes into a lot of historical context, and it provides some pretty, I think, common sense solutions that aren't that common sense. It was a really wonderful listen, and Heather McGhee herself is the audiobook narrator, which I think always enhances the quality of a read like this. So yeah, this was a really great one. I highly recommend it. If you are into audiobooks, it was only 11 hours long, which I feel like, despite the thickness of what this book looks like, it was a pretty short listen and very insightful. So highly recommend. So that's the end of my November wrap up. I read 5 of the Expanse books in November. All of them are over 500 pages each. Like I said, the only way I was able to pull that off was because I had an entire week off work where I could not see any television or YouTube videos or anything because my eyes were so blurry. And so my only form of entertainment was listening to audiobooks. So I'm very grateful for the Libby app. If you don't have the Libby app on your phone, you definitely need to check it out. It connects to your local library as long as your library participates. Most big libraries do. It's a wonderful way to get ebooks and audiobooks for free. So my goals for December are to finish Braiding Sweetgrass. Like I said, I've only got like 25% of the book left, but because my eyes are still a little blurry, and they will be probably for most of the month of December, I might have to wait till the end of the month because I don't have this on ebook or anything. If I had it on ebook, I might be able to like blow up the words really big, but I don't right now. So I'm just going to have to wait on this one. So for December, I have to finish this book. I've committed to it. And Circe by Madeline Miller is the second book that I picked up at the Little Free Library tour that I said I would complete before the end of the year. I'm actually listening to this one on audiobook right now as I'm filming this, and it's excellent so far, so I can't wait to see where this is going to go. But other than these two, which I committed to already earlier in the year, the rest of my month is open. I have some ideas for what I want to read, but I'm leaving it a little bit up to some mood reading and what will be available to me, possibly with audiobooks through the library. So that was my November reading wrap up. I hope you guys had an excellent reading month as well. Let me know down below either what your favorite read of the month of November was, or the book you're most anticipating reading for the month of December. I can't wait to hear what you guys are getting into right now. As always, be kind, read books, and hit the subscribe button below for more bookish content to come. I'll see you later.